Live from KTUL Tulsa. You're watching Good Day Tulsa.
The Russian invasion of Ukraine shocked the world and left many of us scratching our heads, kind of wondering what were the reasons for the conflict. Well, this morning we're happy to visit with celebrity historian Raffi Andonian to provide a little bit of historical context on those current day events. So thank you so much, Raffi, for joining us. You know, I'm in the news business. We read these stories every day. We watch the packages being sent down by networks, but a lot of us don't really, unless you're living there, it's really hard to understand exactly what is going on and what led up to this. So let's start with that. How long has this been brewing between Russia and Ukraine?
Well, it depends how you look at it, right? I mean, you look at recent history, I would say a couple of decades, but I would argue that I think it goes back even further, several centuries prior to the Soviet Union and into the Russian Empire.
Okay, so how do the regional identities and allegiances contribute to what's happening over there?
Yeah, so let's kind of go dig a little deeper here and look at the historical context, right? So in the recent past, what you have is this regional division, if you will, that I don't think is there as much anymore, but has been building into this. For example, in 2004, you have the Orange Revolution, which is a conflict between the sort of more pro-Western and pro-Russian groups. And the pro-Western groups tend to be in the western part of Ukraine, and the pro-Russian groups tend to be in the eastern part of Ukraine. And they're different in religion and cultural orientation. In the West, you have Catholics. In the East, you have Russian Orthodox. And then in 2014, everyone remembers the annexation of Crimea, right?
Right.
And if you look at it a little bit deeper than that, what happens is that, you know, in 2014, there was really an uprising against a pro-Russian president. And so in response to that, Russia does the annexation of Crimea. Now, in doing so, what I think historically, in the recent past at least, is that it creates a little bit more of a unified Ukrainian identity. And that's why Putin is acting now, because when you look in 2019, you know, you have Zelensky, the current Ukrainian president. He wins in a landslide, about a 3-1 margin. And Zelensky ran on a pro-EU, pro-NATO, pro-Western platform. So if you're Putin, you don't really like that. And here's why. And here's why I say this really goes back even further, despite the events being recent. Because Putin's language, and I don't claim to know how his mind works or anything like that. I don't have any special connection to him. But his language, he keeps referring to one people, our people. That's very different than the Soviet Union. You know, in the Soviet Union, you had this sense of different polities coming together, at least the perception being voluntarily. I know it wasn't always the case that way, so that you can create an ideology, right? Promote an ideology, communism. In this case, though, he's looking at Ukraine and Belarus, the old Russian, it's the steppe region today, so it's like the big Great Plains of that region, but the old Russian Empire. And he keeps referring to them as our people. So I think that there's this sort of paradigm he's working from that is looking back prior to the Soviet Union and looking at the old Russian Empire of Russian people. You know, my dad, for example, he's from Romania. That's in the Warsaw Pact. That's associated with the Soviet Union. But they didn't see them as Russian. But in this case, they're seeing the steppe region, Ukraine and Belarus, as being Russian. And that region has been attempted to be Russified, colonized for centuries upon centuries. And that's where I think that there is this kind of looking backward that really comes together and rises up in the last 20 years and obviously in the last few weeks.
Okay, so we are just about out of time, but let me just see if I kind of can surmise this a little bit. So do you think, in your opinion, that this is Putin trying to get things back to the way that they once were, and he's a little threatened by the whole Western ideology of what Zelensky's brought to the table?
I do.
Okay.
And I would just go one step further and say, not so much just the Soviet Union, even though he refers to that language. I would say he's looking at Russia and Russian people as our one people, as one group. That's how I would say he sees it. So I would go a few centuries back from the Soviet Union as well.
Was it warranted? Was the invasion warranted? Final word there.
I don't think so, no. I think that's an opinion, of course, but I don't think it was. But it's a historical perspective that's influencing it.
Okay, well, that's good. We need that perspective because people can form an opinion, but unless it's an educated opinion, it really doesn't matter.
That's right. The history provides a context to understand today.
All right. Thank you so very much for breaking it down and making it a lot easier for us to understand. We appreciate you joining us today. All right, once again, the Russia-Ukraine, the historical perspective. If you'd like more information about it, to educate yourself, visit raffiandonian.com.